Welcome to CEO. I'm Michael Yorba. Excuse me, I'm going to start it again. Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. I have Zachary Berk, CEO of HappCo, HappCo.com, on the show with me today. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
I'm glad you're here. All right, mindfulness in the workplace and the full impact it'll have in business. Bring that out for us.
Well, this is something new. Mindfulness and meditation was never even thought of as something to introduce into the workplace. I was talking to a corporate leadership trainer a few months ago, and when he got started 30 years ago, he couldn't even use the word joy when he was talking about the work he wanted to do and the impact he wanted to have in the workplace. So we've really come a long way from not even accepting the word joy. And there was a recent study that showed that by this year, 2018, there are close to 50% of major corporations that are offering mindfulness for their employees. And so the question is, well, what happened over that 30-year time period? And why is business embracing mindfulness and meditation? And the simple answer is that employees that are meditating and being mindful are actually more productive. There are so many side benefits to meditation that are really addressing a lot of the issues of the millennials and the lack of engagement and the overworking and all the issues that are creating a lot of stress and a bit of confusion in the workplace. So the benefits are multiple. One of the most important things that employees or employers are looking at is what's disengaging them. And Monster.com just did a survey on people that were looking for new jobs. And 71% said that the reason they were looking for new jobs was because they didn't like their manager. And that was the reason why they wanted to leave and try a new position at another firm. And what meditation helps people do is become more resilient. They become more compassionate. They become more centered. They become more creative. I mean, one of the meditation series that I have in my program, in the HappCo program, is in compassion. And one of the things that we do, what the practitioners do when they're doing the meditation, is they think about their manager and they begin to develop a more positive relationship with them, doing that work internally. And then when they're done with the meditation and they go back into the workplace, they have a whole different feel and a whole different understanding and relationship with their manager than they had before. And it's much more positive.
Having some background in meditation myself, that goes back to early childhood, I wanted to understand where you came from with this process, how you ended up getting into and building a company of mindfulness and corporations.
Well, my professional career has been, I was an eye doctor for 10 years, then I got into venture capital. I was in healthcare venture capital for over 30 years. But before that, when I was a college student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, I was going through an incredibly traumatic period. I had lost my girlfriend, who I dearly loved, and I still have a terrible learning disability. So I was really having trouble studying, and I was on the verge of dropping out of school. And that thrust me into a deep depression. And I was lucky enough because I had two friends who invited me over for dinner. And this guy, John, who was doing his master's in philosophy. And he said, Zach, let me tell you about my master's thesis. And what he was working on was the idea that reality is not a random series of events, but there's a sense of oneness to it. And here I was listening to every word he said, and I was in this deep state of depression. And he was talking about a world that I was totally foreign to. That was not the world and reality that I was operating from. And I started focusing on every word. And then all of a sudden, bam, just like a flash, my world changed. I went into a state of complete relaxation. My mind, my ego mind or cognitive mind, went totally quiet for 3 whole weeks. And so, I mean, as you know, in meditation, sometimes it's hard for 3 minutes.
It's hard to get quiet.
It's hard to get quiet, even for 10 seconds. It's hard to get. So here I was quiet for 3 weeks. And at the end of that 3 weeks, I was in my apartment. I was looking out the window, and this was in 1967. And Madison, Wisconsin, as you probably know, was the center of a tremendous amount of anti-war turbulence. There was a documentary film called The War at Home. And there was just tremendous, it was a revolution going on. And I happened to look at 2 co-eds walking down the street, and I saw how depressed they were. And immediately my sense of compassion took me over. And I said, I want to help as much as I possibly can to help the situation and helping people become happier. And I committed myself to doing that. It's been a lifelong effort. And what I feel, and I've experimented with a lot of different approaches to try to help people and help the world in the condition that we're in. And we're not in a very good condition, to say the least. And about 7 years ago, I started to focus in on meditation. I had been doing meditation and yoga for most of my life, but I started to see how meditation potentially could do enormous good within the workplace. And so over this time period, I've been developing meditation programs. I actually just finished yesterday my 144th meditation. I do these 20 to 22-minute meditations. And I'm taking people on a journey. I'm developing a meditation program that's a lifelong journey, because it's just like physical conditioning. You don't want to get into a physical, getting your body in shape for 2 months or a year, and then forget about it for the rest of your life. Well, the same thing is the conditioning of the mind. You don't want to have a program where it'll run for 2 months. It begins to change your life. You're really feeling more centered, more calm, more peaceful, more insightful, and then all of a sudden the program's over. So I'm committing the rest of my life to be developing a lifelong program. I eventually plan to have thousands of these meditations, and it's a journey. I take you on a journey, because the complexities of the inner world it's not simple. And it's not what we were brought up to learn about. It's a totally different world, and it's a totally different challenge. And it's not something that can be handled in a week, a month, a year. It's something that really you need to incorporate and understand very deeply.
The barriers to entry is a big term that I run across a lot in my industry, and it means different things in different settings. But the mindset of corporate America can be a barrier to entry for what you're trying to bring into their business to help them. How are you working with businesses so that they can utilize the wisdom, the experiences that you have to better their business and better their not only their workforce, but actually their commerce through other people? How is that process for you taking place?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned before, but the 50% of major corporations are now offering mindfulness to their employees. So companies that are not doing it are reading about it. They're hearing about it. And they're trying to figure out, well, is this for me? Is it something that I want to bring into the company? Because there's a lot of woo-woo stuff and all kinds of Eastern guru, Hindu, religious overtones. And so there is resistance, but that resistance is falling pretty rapidly. However, I've developed a program that is generic. I don't I don't use Sanskrit terminology. I talk about just the basics. I talk about scientific understandings that we have about the mind. I keep it as corporate, I give it a corporate wash. so to speak. So it's easy for people to digest. And I get right down to the core values without all of the frills and histories and the like. And that becomes something that's much more acceptable. I also, at least for now, offering a 2-month free trial so people can try it. They can take a small group, a team, let's say, or get volunteers that are interested in doing it as a pilot program. And I'll go in and I'll do a pilot program. But what ends up happening is that the CEOs begin to see the kind of impact, positive impact that this can have. I'll give you an example. There's a guy, he's in his early 60s. He's a research scientist. He's in a biotech company. And he volunteered for the program. And within 2.5 months, his blood pressure dropped by 10%. He began to love himself. And if you know, loving yourself in this culture is very, very difficult because we beat up on ourselves all the time. We're not good enough. We should be doing this, that, and the other thing. So to get into a place of really loving yourself and being accepting of yourself is a real rarity. And he accomplished that. And he said he also lost 10 pounds that he'd been trying to lose for years because now he was loving himself, so it was easy for him to be kinder and to himself and take better care of his body. He also, as I mentioned before, he was able to accomplish developing a positive relationship with his manager, where he was really thinking of leaving the company, but because of the compassion and the loving kindness meditations, he all of a sudden had a positive feeling about his manager. And that's all music to a CEO's ears. And when they see that, they say, wait, what if I do that for the whole company? There's a guy named Ned Herman. He's no longer alive anymore, but he was a corporate consultant to large corporations. And his big thing was on creativity. And he knew that creativity mainly occurs when the mind is generating theta waves, which is when you're in a deep meditative state. And he was giving this talk to a team of people from the Bank of America. And the CEO of the Bank of America, when he was hearing this, he said, wait a second, if you're talking about an individual capturing their creativity, then a whole company could capture this creativity. And Ned said, you're absolutely right, because it can unleash a whole inner motivation and creativity for the whole company. And can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty exciting stuff. But at that time, when Ned was going around giving seminars on this, people weren't doing meditation. So the ability to generate theta and be in a deep meditative state was not really happening at that time. But what's exciting, when I discovered this recently in his work, I said, my God, here we now are in an opportunity in a time where there are millions of employees who are now meditating, who are generating a theta state. And that ability to generate greater creativity in the workplace is there. And I'll give you one more comment about the importance of creativity, especially in this time of rapid change, of technological change. Actually, IBM, a couple of years ago, did a worldwide study on all of their international CEOs and asked them to rank the 10 most important items that they are worrying about to keep their companies competitive. And you know what the number one, by far, was the creativity of their employees.
I can see
this is
a big edge.
Big edge. I mean, again, with the things changing so rapidly, if your workforce are not creative, you're just going to be passed on by your competitors. They're more.
I agree with you 100%. I've been, a big believer in what you're doing for a long time. As a matter of fact, it goes back generations in my family. But let's turn this to right now with what you said about the entire company as a creative force. The millennials are engaging more and more into higher levels of business as we go forward. And it seems to me that this is kind of what they're looking for not only in what you see and how they express themselves on social media, but how they engage in business. And I wanted to get your take on the feedback and the engagement of millennials being able to adopt this process of focus and creativity through meditative practices and training.
Well, as you know, the meditation wave really was ignited in Silicon Valley. Google, on their 1 day a week, I think it's on Fridays, you can almost do whatever you want. I mean, there's a committee that makes the decision if the project you want to work on is approved. And meditation was one of the choices, and that became one of their most popular projects each week. And that sort of ignited, and again, Google began to see the kind of impact it was having with those that were participating, and not only those who were participating, but it changed the culture. You could feel it. There was a feeling there. And so it spread like wildfire throughout Silicon Valley, and these are mainly being employed by millennials. So they're millennials. This just, and then it spread throughout the country in different industries. It's almost, it doesn't matter what industry it is, it's being impacted and is being adopted, and it's now an international thing. So as you said, the millennials are looking for their workplace to be part of their personal development. Mm-hmm. They don't want to just go to work. They want to grow as an individual. And as you know, I mean, you're giving indications of how far back in your family and how important you realize meditation is. That's probably the most important thing you can do in the day, is do your meditation. Because it centers you, it charges your batteries, it allows you to get out of your ego mind and be in touch with your higher self. And that's where you draw your creativity from. That's where you draw your sense of peace, inner peace from, so that you can begin to, with a head that's been screwed on straight, approach the day.
Right, and you're open to letting good come to you by changing your vibrations and open up to the creative solutions to not even the mundane problems that arise, let alone the big issues that you've got to accomplish to compete in today's world. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see I'm talking, to somebody who has deep experience on this. Well, this is an exciting time. And what's so exciting for me is that I believe that the combination of mindfulness and meditation and business, that partnership together, because I tell CEOs, you want to increase the value of your company and increase the profitability of your company, get as many of your people to do meditation. And if you do that, you're going to improve the quality of your company. So I feel that for generating positive good for the world, because that's where my heart is, and that's, I'm all about service, is that I think that's the greatest force for positive change in the world, is the adoption of meditation in the workplace. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's been more powerful than what's going on now today. It's an exciting time for that.
That's a good message. Zach, I want to thank you for being a guest on our show, and I hope to have you back on again so that we can drill down into some particular case studies and practices that we can bring out to the world.
Mike, I would love to do it, and thanks again for the opportunity to come on your show today.
My pleasure. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thank you for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.